you know us very well. Some of you are even on this slide. But fundamentally, for those of you that are new to Crimson, again, just to I suppose in a quick sort of 30 seconds, we are a leading Microsoft Dynamics 365 Gold partner, and also work with a number of other cloud business applications. Because of the nature of Microsoft's business applications, in that they're market leading customer engagement systems that run across different industries, we're very, how do I put it, proactively involved in home builder and housing association organizations. For those of you that know us well will know that. So actually, as well as just understanding the Dynamics 365 business application estate and how you guys might get the benefits from those, we're also very much industry aligned. So when we come and have the conversations with you, we understand your language, we understand the business processes that you work with, and actually your industry challenges and pain points. And encourage sessions like this where we can not only just show you some of the technology and talk around business problems and challenges, but also get you guys collaborating and talking about shared and commonalities and problems. So yeah, a little bit about us for those of you guys that don't know who we are already. Um, so my talk, and obviously this particular webinar is focused on some of the sales and marketing aspects of some of the work or sort of challenges and pain points that we've been talking to housing associations and home builders about. I think it's been very interesting for me during COVID to watch trends of different housing associations and different home builders taking different reactions or behaving in different ways during the COVID period. What's been telling though is there is certainly a trend of digital being first. People actually, in most instances, and some of the guys that I've been speaking to, some of you are on the call now, having extremely chaotic but positively chaotic periods in reopening some of your sites. Naturally, a lot of you are doing appointments only, where you would traditionally have foot traffic in the sales and marketing areas of your housing association or home builder business. But actually, the demand is still there, which is encouraging. I think broadly speaking, this slide summarizes the challenge, the overarching challenge, not just sales and marketing, that I think a lot of you face. Social media sites, e-commerce sites like Amazon, social media sites like Twitter and things like that leave consumers and your customers immersed in digital experiences day to day. And when they come to you and deal with you, that we talk about the channel of choice. How do they want to engage? How do they want to interact with you? And ultimately, more importantly, what tools do your guys on the ground have as the ability to be able to interact with customers in ways in which they would prefer, and be as responsive as some of these large retailers or social media sites that fundamentally are driving today's and tomorrow's customer experience. So longer term, in order to make that happen, naturally what we need, and we talk about at the bottom here, if you see the bottom line, about joining your back office processes, joining the systems, removing some of those disparate spreadsheets, legacy databases, and replacing with what we describe as a front end customer solution, which effectively takes that, as soon as that customer looks at your website, is engaged with you in that very infancy, in that first engagement, whether it's with a human or whether it's with fundamentally your web or digital presence. How do you track that customer journey right the way through to them moving into their home and becoming either for housing a tenant or with a customer in warranty period with home builders? So it's about how do we take that whole journey and make sure that our guys on the ground are best equipped to manage that journey, but also that we as an organization get a holistic view of what that journey is. And from a customer side, that actually we're able to deal with them and can respond to them in the way that they want to, in the timely manner that they would expect with today's experiences. Again, for those of you that don't know us, when we say we specialize in home builder and housing, what we mean by that, certainly in the sales and marketing front end, is that we have Dynamics 365 as a core solution is sales and marketing, has a wealth of capability, and I'll summarize that in a second. But we also, as a business, have invested the time in creating what we call our property accelerator, which is fundamentally comprising of a number of record types, fields, forms, dashboards, reports, workflows that fundamentally are aligned to home builder and housing associations that you wouldn't get out of the box. So we pre-can that template. We don't charge for it. It's not IP that's wedded to us. It's simply a configuration capability that we've created that gives you a start of a 10 and actually allows you to start to visualize, well, what could that end-to-end customer journey look like? Or if we were to deploy for phase one, sales and marketing, what could that experience look like and what could we do with it? So let's talk just a little bit about okay, sales and marketing. So as a Microsoft standpoint, as we've said, what capabilities are there out of the box? What is it that it actually does as a solution to actually help you drive things? And we're going to talk about a number of different topics here around intelligent sales in a second, and what does an example of potentially what we know is a sales process and a very traditional sales process, which, by the way, some of the traditional values and that face-to-face interaction, I believe, and I think a lot of you guys also believe, are relevant today and will be relevant tomorrow. But actually, how do we leverage the technology and take the opportunity with some of the tools that we've got, like Dynamics 365, to actually, around the edges, be more intelligent and succinct with the experience that we're creating and enhance that more traditional experience? What you can see here across the top, when I talked to you just a second ago about what does a consumer feel, what does a customer feel who's looking to buy a new home potentially, or engage with a housing association, or engage with a home builder. Across the top there in red is just an example of today's minimal, to be honest, modern communication technologies that they'll interact with you with. And underneath that, what you can start to see is how we've broken out marketing sales as the core functionality within Dynamics 365, and what tools and assets functionally does it give you out of the box. So that ability to create multi-channel campaigns, manage your events, manage segmentation and tracking, as well as sending out those comms and email marketing, which I'll show in demonstration a little bit later. Underneath that, actually, this is the important thing for a lot of you guys, is actually at the moment you'll have a marketing system over here, you'll have a sales system over here, but the two very rarely talk to each other. And how do we bring the two together to actually drive insights so that actually when marketing are doing their campaign analysis, but also are looking at the click-through information, the who's signed up for this event information, who subscribed to the newsletter information, who's been on our website and been looking at plot 132. All that information is going to be available for you in the same system within marketing or sales, because we're leveraging the same platform dynamics. So actually, salespeople are going to get a good gut feel based on foot traffic and individuals that are booking appointments with them as to whether actually this individual and customer feels like they are in the market space for buying a home. And there's clear evidence to me that they're in, based on the things that they're saying, they're in the affordability area. They have I don't know, a job relocation, which is a compelling event. That means that they want to move to this area, and therefore they're a hot prospect. But what about some of those introverted individuals who don't really give a lot away, but actually coming out of the sort of the sales office or site office? What about if they are interacting with particular plot pages, particular development or site pages? All that information can be handed over through to sales without marketing having to lift a finger, really, apart from execute their normal day-to-day campaigns. So I think it's really key that that trade-off and that relationship between the two is there, and that sales can actually reap the rewards of that information. And yes, they can go to that contact record to see what they've clicked. But even when we talk about intelligent sales, we talk about, well, lead scoring. Why should sales have to go and have a look at, okay, so show me what all the web links that they've clicked on? What if we can drive scoring mechanisms and be intelligent with the system to say, salesperson A or Jordan Wheat, who works in the Crimson Home sales office, such and such, Ian Bobbett has been clicking on the website and has been interacting with this particular page and has been on the plot 312 page 10 times in the last 2 days. And actually, because of that, their lead scoring has gone up to either green, red, amber, green, hot, warm, cold, or 1, 2, 3, whatever we want to label it as, so that sales are informed of that intelligent information. So let's talk a little bit about what Microsoft, us aside, what Microsoft deem from not just not just your industry but other industries as well, because I think it's really important that we take a step back and um, forget what we know for a second around this specific industry in home building and housing, and take some lessons from some of those who are creating and paving the way for real modern and intelligent experiences. This gives you a good idea overarching. So the last slide was about capability. This is about actually how do we leverage the tools. We talk about artificial intelligence, which I'll talk about in my demonstration. We talk about actionable insights, but what does it mean? And how do we join the dots with all of those things? So what we're describing here is effectively and what we've been doing with a lot of our customers recently is looking in workshops around what is it that Dynamics 365 gives you out of the box as a tool set and its capability, and how do we use and leverage some of those tools to actually really orchestrate a customer journey, but also orchestrate, from my perspective, some of those tie all of that sales and marketing alignment, tie all the insights together, tie in the proactive alerts, tie in the surveying, proactive emailing, proactive text messaging, whatever it might be, and manage and coordinate site opening days to feed all into that. So there's a lot of information here and a lot of, let I say, customer journey planning and intelligent sales and marketing process management that we can leverage as templates to actually work with you to say, okay, so how do you work today, and what, based on the best in breed capability within Dynamics and what other industry leaders are doing, how do you actually reimagine some of those processes and selling that you do at the moment to really leverage technology like artificial intelligence to be more smart about how you're selling, and how the guys on the ground have the tools to be able to work out where should I go next, or what is my next best action, or who is most interactive with us when they step outside of that sales site office. So some of you guys have seen me demonstrate before, and I'll have to apologise because some of it is cross what you may have seen before. But what I wanted to position today, normally those of you guys that know me, I tend to do a day in the life of. I'll walk you through the boots of how a customer potentially goes from that start point to that end point. Just because of time permitting today, and for some of you guys who are new, what I wanted to do is stick with this theme of sales and marketing excellence, and just talk about some of these key themes, omni-channel engagement, and then we want to talk. So I'm going to be showing sort of just again how we track more traditional comms, and how you might even use new comms like live chat actually to combine to actually do some modern channels and some modern interaction channels. I think certainly in today's day and age, given everything that's happened with COVID, it's driven customers to want to interact directly with channels like live chat rather than physically have to step outside their home to come and interact with you guys, or use traditional methods if they want a quick answer. We'll talk about sales process, workflow, and data integrity. So we've always got to ask ourselves when putting in any new solution, what's in it for them, for the end user? And what I'll talk about is how we can use the solution and leverage it to actually govern sales process, manage data workflow, but also keep the integrity of the data there. But from a sales end user perspective, what do we see? How do we manage a process and efficiently take a customer through a sales cycle? And then finally, I'm just going to talk again on actually more of a retail instance, and look at how retailers do, for a better word, some of the actionable insights, and look at data and reporting of customer trends or interactions with customer trends, and how we then use and leverage AI to effectively understand how we can improve our sales service. So hopefully, I'll just double check when I click here. Can everyone see, or probably only needs one of you, but Keish, can you see my screen now? Now I've flicked over to the Crimson Home screen.
Yes, can see it.
Fantastic. So let's just talk very briefly then about marketing automation. And again, some of you guys may have seen this functionality, some of you may have not. So just for those that haven't seen Dynamics 365 before, just to know what you're looking at, across the left-hand side is where I do any of my navigation, and it tells me, and I can create different areas as depending on my job role, and define what it is that I see on both the left-hand side and the center screen. Some of you who might not have seen Dynamics before but are used to Office 365 will see that the Microsoft waffle is here, and all my other Office 365 applications are directly here and available too. And of course, a navigation ribbon if I want to create new records or do a global search or find anything in the databases across the top. And finally, the center stage here is where I'm doing all of my work and where the canvas of the things that I'm looking at is present. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is marketing automation. So how do we leverage the tools to actually automate our journeys within marketing and right the way through feeding through to sales? So the first thing here is that actually you can see I've created an automated branching logic around a particular campaign, be it a West Midlands site launch or whatever it might be. It could be a site launch where you've got repeatable campaigns where it's like a site opening or whether it's I don't know, an appointment workflow that is someone's booked an appointment on the website and we need to then send this email, this confirmation, this SMS. This is the canvas where we can start to create, right, which prospect group are we targeting? What email campaign is it that we're doing? Or what event is it that we're starting? And we can drop and drag through a canvas here what it is that we're doing as a marketing automation so that your marketing team can run a campaign with an automated fashion and use this as a template for time and time again, whether you're launching in the West Midlands or whether you're launching down south or up north. You can see here what I'm in is drop and drag mode to decide what is it that's happening with this campaign. What do we want to do? So in this top instance here, you can see it's about actually we're going to be sending a marketing email. And based on what happens with that marketing email, if it's clicked or not clicked, what happens with that particular marketing email. So if I just scroll here, you can see here, right, so if they've clicked that, then send them an invitation to our newsletter. If they haven't clicked that, send them a second email with a different message. What then happens if they do or don't click that? And this is me here canvassing what it is that we're creating as a marketing automated campaign. My point is here, guys, is as you can see already, it's really easy to use. You've got to drop and drag and just decide and create what that marketing automation looks like. Off the back of that, and once we publish this and schedule that, we can reuse it as a template for whether it's a site launch, whether it's just, as I said, an appointment workflow. But these is for repeatable campaigns that we can use time and time again. And what we can see here is, again, some of the actionable insights as to people have been clicking on those emails, people have been clicking on the pages that we've linked to this campaign. What does that look like? More traditional marketing. So if we were to look at fundamentally actually creating email. So this is just an example one for Crimson Homes for our creating our just a soft comms, which is around helping our customer softly emails about customers during the COVID period thinking about your brand new home office and what if you might be sending some nice designs out there of again getting prospects warmed up to thinking about home offices and how you've reimagined home offices during the pandemic and what that might look like and what chairs or whatever it might be that they might be doing as just as an example. But just as easy it is to create marketing automation, I can quickly create branded emails here, adding images, adding particular text boxes directly here, creating custom code, linking it to event pages, whatever it might be. We can pull it into here. And in the same way that we get all the insights with directly with the marketing campaign workflow, we've got, as you'd expect in any marketing tool, all of that rich information to click through, who's opened what, who's unsubscribed, what's the click-through rate, what's the responses over time on a timeline, which particular pages are the top pages that they're clicking on, whereabouts is this information being clicked on, as an example. So all that rich KPIs. The nice thing about some of the suites that we've got within Dynamics as well is that we've actually got a full-blown events capability. So whether it's us wanting to create particular events to, if I click here and go into some of the information, we can actually proactively create an event or an open day directly here. And we can actually manage that whole event via an events portal where whether it's an open day or whatever it might be, morning viewings, excuse the branding here, where people can actually register and create their registration directly through here, which could be as a sub-site on your website and can register for a slot on a particular open day or booking. And those registrations and attendance, once booked, will come directly into here. So just let that load a second. So Liam Green's events registration for an open day to see a particular plot has come through into the marketing solution. So we then talk about, some of you have seen me demo this before, but we then talk about, well, that's just one channel, that's traditional marketing. The great thing about that is, though, that if we've got all that rich click-through information, what we're also effectively seeing is sales will see all that rich information against the particular contacts and prospects that they're working with. But what about if some of our marketing team or some of our sales team need to interact directly via chat, or want to interact directly via chat, as well as those traditional marketing comms and seeing those click-throughs and responding to those? Some of you have seen that actually you can interact directly with live chat. Again, this is just an example that we've run before, that we've shown some of you, where actually we're doing it around repairs, but it doesn't have to be around repairs or defects or snags. It can be used as a sales solution, and some of our customers have trialed that so far. If I then drop into as an agent in the same solution, so I was as a marketing user, but now I'm in sales and marketing mode for chat, I can accept a particular conversation, which might be about when do your site opening hours open again? Forget repairs for a second, but as an individual, we can interact and capture the information around who is it who we're capturing. So I then say that directly within here, which again, this chat function can be dropped directly on your website or on a Dynamics 365 portal, as I showed you a second ago. If I go back here, you can see there's a two-way interaction between us and the customer, which could be anything related to sales, marketing, or booking an appointment. And again, this type of chat technology as a new channel can take as little as something like 5 days to get up and running and get piloting with some of your sales teams. So that scenario aside, again, what we're talking about there is giving customers the flexibility of choice in the way in which we interact with them, capturing those insights in how we interact with them through the various different omni-channel worlds and experiences that consumers would expect today, but also then trading off and handing off that information so that we can pass that through the sales and marketing funnel through to sales. And now what I'm going to show as a second scenario is what do sales see?
I just have a question, sorry.
No problem.
So from Stuart Talbot, so at Bloor Homes, is it possible to create HTML emails elsewhere like Dreamweaver, then import those in Dynamics with the ability to edit and amend accordingly?
Yeah, so great question. So absolutely. So just on that email or marketing email that was on a second ago, if I just go in here, yes, you can import templates. And if you wanted to as well, just instead of use the drop and drag designer, you can access the whole of the HTML code under here. But yes, you can import templates.
Brilliant. Does that answer your question, Stuart? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's perfect. It was just so we're looking at another solution that would sit in Marketo and link through to Sitecore. But it seemed to me that what we're trying to do in there is definitely possible in Dynamics. So that answers it perfectly. Thank you.
No problem. So next we're going to look at the sales journey, and we're going to look at a little bit around marketing again, just a teaser of some of the things that we can do there. But what about when sales interact with the system, or if we do get foot traffic, how do they get that holistic view, and how do they efficiently manage? How do we empower our people with the tools to efficiently manage a sales process? So this is just an example of when a prospect might have come through the web or might have come through Zoopla or Rightmove, which again, just a couple of the portals that we'd integrate with. So how does that look? Again, from an if we've got a net new contact who's come in, who's, let's say, been foot traffic or might have been come through the website already, and the salesperson, because I know one of the key problems a lot of you guys have is around duplication of the same contacts that we've got across the different databases. If someone's come in here, and this is just an example of a salesperson creating a new contact within the database, if I try and save and close someone who's already come through as a lead on Zoopla or Rightmove, you can see here the system is proactively looking at duplicates and saying, right, well, we've already got 2 Jordan Wheats in the system, and I, as a salesperson, am empowered to say, oh, have you already been to visit one of our sites, or have you interacted with any of our websites? Oh, and is your email address XYZ, or did you last interact with that email on this date? It means we're informed, and we can stop kind of adding the same data to the solution and use the tools to govern the data. I'm just going to use an existing contact who I use time and time again, a gentleman named John Collins. But what we can also do here is look at what campaign is it linked to. So, John, where did you find us? What have you interacted with, and where do you remember us from? Oh, I went to a site launch the other day. Oh, fantastic. What we can also do here is look at the different. Some of you housing clients will need to look at the different tenure types. This is less relevant for some of you guys who are specifically home builders. But again, home builders, the assurance is that you can input and capture the different schemes, or the salespeople can capture different schemes, whether it's Help to Buy or whether it's in 6 months called something else. If I hit shared ownership as an example, you can see here that the process flow for the sales user opens a new step and stage for me to go through that process, so I'm capturing the right level of information. Equally, if I'm going through rent as an example, it changes again. So I'm just going to stick to purchase for this one. If I hit next, you can see I've clicked all the mandatory fields here. I've gone through the process, and it now is asking me for new information. So I'm asking the customer, okay, so what's your current status? Why are you moving? What's your maximum price? What are your minimum bedrooms? And this is completely configurable, guys. So everything that I'm showing you here isn't necessarily the finished article. You can add more stages, more steps. It's just about actually, again, finding the right information for your customer. So and for your sales guys on the ground. So I've actually, at that point, added the information about homes. If I click find plots there, what you can then see is it's already through workflow automated a series of plots that have matched fundamentally against the criteria for the customer. So John, I'm sure, will come in with a preconceived idea of what his preferred plots are, but actually I can actually then get already a list of the different plots and availability that we have already within the solution that meet his requirements. Because what that will do from a sales and marketing providing, so here's the plot itself, is track time and time again all of actually the interests of potential candidates like John who may be interested in this particular plot. So you can see here we've got a list of 86, and we've also got still recognition here of if customers have told us they've reserved elsewhere or reserved with us on another plot, we've got an active marketing list of all those people here directly if we're trying to proactively sell this plot as to who's tracked against this based on criteria over time, but also who's still in the market and who's reserved since, whether it's with us or whether it's someone else. So that should give you a good idea, guys, of actually the sales process and sales workflow. And again, this will take us right the way through to, should we want it to, getting to the point of which we're making, or the customer's then making, a reservation. So typically, in this instance, whether it's shared ownership and you've got all the information here, or whether it's just a standard purchase or another tenure type, once we finish that process, that will then kick through and we can go through a reservation process and actually take the customer through to reservation, through to completion and post-completion. And we'll interact at this point typically with a payment gateway, which will allow sales and marketing guys on the ground to take a deposit. So just to kind of cap off then, so that should give you a quick overview again of sort of the sales process and the tools that they have. But from a sales perspective, as well as all that rich processing and that fundamental start to finish and workflow that's wrapped around the process and the automating of that, of course, they have dashboards and interactive charts at their fingertips. So whether it's they want to bring it all into one place to look at, right, these are all my activity and phone calls and missed phone calls because we've got it integrating with our phone system that we've had over the last few days and weeks. Here are all the reservations that have been made and what stages that they're at. Here's all the plot availability on a particular site that we're working at the moment. Here's all the inquiries that are coming through Zoopla or Rightmove and by what particular rating or what by what source as it would be. We've also then got different dashboards that can be tailored depending on what it is that salespeople want to see. So if you wanted it to be more, let's say, chart based, we want to see a pipeline funnel, we want to see that pie chart front of mind, and we also want to see all of the different proactive notifications and alerts that are coming from, let's say, if we've got reminders that we haven't interacted with this opportunity in 24 hours or 38 hours, 36 hours, however long it might be. All that information is here at our fingertips, and we create these different charts and dashboards to be interactive and think about, as you guys as sales executives on the ground, what is it that you want to see? And if you need to then drill into that information to look at that information in more detail with a chart on the background, of course we can do that. But then what about management summary and management reports? And then taking that reporting to that next level and using things like I've said, intelligence to actually be able to proactively look at our data. Once we've got that data in place and we've got that processing of information and sales and marketing humming together, what else can we do and what sort of the technology can do for us to actually be smart about what we're doing and what's our next best action? So I said to you earlier that we sort of take lessons from retail and look at other different sort of leading sectors that are really driving and sort of molding and paving the way for modern customer experience and sales and marketing. So what I've got here is this is a reporting suite that is what Microsoft call their sales insights. So it takes all of the data from Dynamics and presents it in a Power BI format, which, as you guys will know, is Microsoft's business intelligence tool. And in this case is taking some of the call center data or call data from the sales guys on the ground in actually a retail environment and looking at sort of trends, not necessarily around homes, but around actually, believe it or not, a coffee retailer. So fundamentally, at the top screen here, we're looking at fundamentally what at a home level around our organization, what are customers talking about? So we're not just looking at sort of sales data, we're looking at customer data as an overview of our organization. So because this is integrated with our phone system and has a technology in the background called cognitive services, which is interpreting some of that voice, looking at things like sentiment, it's saying, right, across sales calls, we have a noticeably higher negative customer sentiment than average. So Microsoft's out-of-the-box sentiment indicator, which can pick up, has its out-of-the-box understanding of what is good, bad, and indifferent and neutral sentiment. It's looking at those things and saying when salespeople are having conversations with customers, is it good, bad, or indifferent? And again, that sentiment analysis is something that you can access and coach over time to actually, when you're looking at it, saying, is that good or is that bad? So here we've got, again, track keywords. So what are the key trends that customers are talking about and then speaking to our customers in terms of orders that they're placing with us? What is it that they're interested in? Who are the competitors when we're talking about other experiences that they're having with other aspects of their coffee world and other just general conversations? Who is it that we've got as known competitors that they're talking about day to day? And again, top trending competitors mentioned across sales calls are. So other brands and organizations that are being associated that they're talking about are trends here. And again, you can see here, we can customize the time frame depending on what it is that we want to see. So what's the difference between the last 7 days or the last 30 days? And look at that trend over time. What we can then do is look at if I take your guys' worlds, look at specific teams. So whether it's a team is a development or site team or sales site team, we can then actually go and drill down into, right, so there's a holistic view of our organization and all that call data and proactive insights. We can then drill it down a level further and look at how a particular development or site is performing. So here we go. What are the team insights? So here's some cue cards again where artificial intelligence is proactively looking at our reporting and recommending things like Molly Clark has a talk to listen ratio that's 31% higher than the team average. Here's our customer sentiment broken down by team. Here are some key conversation styles that are happening across the team. So individual team members, we've notified or we've seen that actually there might be a correlation between listening versus talking and sales performance. So people that typically listen more rather than talk over customers are actually, we can see from sort of their sales record, are performing better. And what we're seeing here is who is talking more versus who is listening more. So if we look particularly at someone who potentially is talking over and above the average team, Molly Clark, what happens then if we want to drill into her particular records? Because what we might be seeing here is a training gap with Molly as an individual. And actually, if we were to able to help her look at trends and look at actually what is it that we could do to help her performance, we can see here, we can see at Seller Insights, Molly Clark's talk to listen ratio is 31% higher than the team's average. She's also got more negative customer sentiment in 28% of her calls higher than average. So actually what this will allow you to do then is we can actually then with Molly, look at some of her, let's say, transcripts with the calls and actually pick out, there's Molly's call, there's when she's saying some positive things. When is the customer being negative, and at what point is it that she's saying, or is it that she's raising particular topics, and where is it that Molly might be missing some key trends and conversations, and we can play those conversations and drill into the different aspects of that conversation and what brands were mentioned, what competitors were mentioned, and what were the action insights within that conversation. So this is just looking at call data, guys, but fundamentally, this will able to pick up trends across things like reservation through to completion. At what point is it that customers are cancelling? And is that because we're leaving them between reservation stages of reservation through to completion at certain stages? What we're talking about here is not just call center data. We're talking about the mechanism to be able to actually look at data and intelligently, proactively understand what is it that we could be doing more with our customers at their varying different journey points to actually prevent things like cancellation, or to actually just uplift the experience, to stop things going south before they go south, and actually recognizing when customers at various junctures, okay, they might be happiest when they put their deposit down, but then, and because they're in buying mode, but then certainly through the sales journey, what could we be doing better, or what could we be doing with our team to making sure that they're delivering a better experience? And then beyond sales, what is it that we're doing to ensure that we keep that high level of customer experience at the endpoint? So hopefully this just shows you how things like artificial intelligence can proactively give you guys insights and intelligence. And as a whistle-stop tour, I've not shown this in a demonstration as I normally would as a day in the life of, which for those of you that would be interested in learning more, I can do so in a separate session, but gives you an idea of when we talk about intelligent sales and marketing and joining the teams together to get the results that you guys are after, how we might go about doing that in something like Dynamics. And with that, conscious of time, guys, what I want to do is sort of hand over to Ian, who's going to talk a little bit more on this final topic here around actually intelligence and insights and topics as well as data science and how that might be able to help us with our sales and marketing efforts. So Ian, if it's okay with you, mate, over to you to sort of branch upon that topic. And for those of you guys, I'll take questions at the end. I think there's a section at the end to take questions. So if anyone's got any questions on that, happy to.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jordan. Just bear with me a moment, folks. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can see it. Thank you, Ian.
I'll take silence as a yes. Hi, everyone, and thanks very much, Jordan. Great to be here today. Hopefully, as the slide is demonstrating, I'm here today to speak about analytics and data science. And, you know, I'm going to put a kind of, I suppose, a caveat at the very start and say, you know, to say this is a whistle-stop tour is understatement of the century. I've made it very high level, very simplified, just for the sake of speed rather than anything else. But please bear with me if it seems a bit noddy. I do apologise, but it's a big old topic. So there's generally quite a lot to get through. And not only is it a big topic, it's a really hot topic. You know, everyone's talking about data at the moment, and you know, machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it, data science. And while it is a hot topic, it remains a wee bit of a dark art, and that's not because it does anything nefarious or anything like that. It's very much because it's never quite crystal clear what it is, and people often use things like machine learning and AI interchangeably, which, you know, in its strictest sense is not really true. And unfortunately, people have a lot of different opinions about what data science in particular is. So today I'm going to give you an opinion. As I said, very generalized. We're going to look at really crudely what data is, how it's used, and then kind of start discussing the future. And I hope that kind of becomes an open conversation. And yeah, we'll jump into it. So hopefully everyone can still see and hear everything. But data is massively important. I don't think we as a society appreciate just how critical data now is to our everyday lives. And companies and governments invest frightening amounts of money in capturing and storing and sometimes using data to the extent, and there's some figures on here, but if we keep growing at our current rate in terms of the data we capture, we'll actually run out of places to store it by about 2025. So lots of work's being done around compression algorithms and new technologies to store data in a more efficient manner. And this year we're due to reach 44 zettabytes of data, and a zettabyte is a 1 with 21 zeros after it. So an awful lot of information. And contextualize that a little bit, that's about 40 times more bytes of data than there are stars in the known universe. So, staggering amounts of information. And, one of the things that I think, we, not as the specialists that we've kind of got on this call, but society in general, struggle with is understanding that data is actually everywhere. Our self-driving cars will be built off artificial intelligence and machine learning. Machine learning has been critical in developing vaccines for COVID-19. It helps you shop on Amazon, and it allows you to store all of your digital pictures. And this recording and my voice, as we all know, that they're ultimately just ones and zeros, and therefore data. And where there's data science often plays a role. Now, I've kind of mentioned that data is all pervasive, but in business, we probably, there's a lot of data that we capture and don't use. That's often referred to as dark data, but there's an awful lot of information that we do capture and we do use. And generally we kind of get that information really from a combination of customers, suppliers, infrastructure, products, and platforms. So if I was to take, I guess, a customer, for example, a customer might be part of a loyalty program, and a big reason for loyalty programs existing, above that kind of transactional loyalty kind of, keep your customer happy perspective, is getting visibility of what customers do. The value exchanges will give you loyalty points, but we can track everything that you buy and we learn more. We ask, people to wear health tech, and all of that health tech is captured, analysed, aggregated, disaggregated, and a lot of inferences are made. We ask them questions. We ask customers questions directly for research purposes, and we even analyse the photos that they put on social media like Instagram. So, as companies, I guess if we're kind of talking about the housing sector, you've got customers, you've got suppliers for various things. You've got infrastructure, so houses, sites, all that kind of thing. You've got products. They might be financial products. They could be the house itself. And you've obviously got platforms to manage all of that. And all of those things generate and store data. And this is probably the slide I'm most nervous about presenting, because this is a gross simplification of the data world, I suppose. So really, there's kind of, I suppose, a knowledge evolution, and companies start by collecting lots of data. They then start reporting on lots of data. They then analyze data, and then it kind of becomes, that machine learning all the way to optimization. So data collection, I think probably everyone's comfortable with. We all know that data is stored, usually, to be honest, across a lot of systems and across a lot of entities in quite an inconsistent manner, but it's there. And what reporting is really great at is monitoring that performance. So a lot of the stuff that Jordan was showing you a few minutes ago, it's telling us what's working and what's not working. The analysis and I suppose the machine learning part of that is slightly different. The purpose of that is to understand why things are happening and what do I need to do to solve it. And I suppose the difference between analysis and machine learning is complexity. Not a lot more than that. So yeah, it's very much trying to understand what's going on and what do I do about it. And that optimization is, well, now I know what I need to do about it. How do I resolve that in the most efficient manner? So that is an extremely broad description of that high level progression. And generally what we kind of draw for our clients is basically a maturity curve. And that maturity curve kind of maps where you are on your data journey, your analytics journey, all of those kind of things. And that kind of leads me to one of the kind of probably the more complex areas. I wondered how many kids you guys would get to meet on this. One of the more complex areas of what's the difference between reporting or BI and data science. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, and please bear in mind, these statements are based on their relative strengths. They're not absolutes, but reporting is fantastic at monitoring performance and identifying potential issues or opportunities. Incredible platform for doing that, because what it does, it takes an awful lot of information and makes it digestible. And data science, I guess, takes data from multiple sources to solve a business challenge, and often that business challenge is identified by reporting. Now, those lines are getting blurred, and I've not seen Jordan's demo before, but Jordan's demo was actually at the end there. It was a really interesting blurring of those lines, because really Jordan was taking you through a reporting portal, but what he was doing is what I describe as train of thought analysis. So these are kind of those steps where business users are using BI tools, which are getting better and better by the day, to start to really get to understanding, I suppose, not only what's happening, but the why it's happening. So I suppose just to caveat that ever so slightly, that's great when everything sits in one system. It's a bit trickier when, as most companies in reality have, quite a diverse range of different systems. And that's where your kind of data platforms come into play to kind of unite all of that information. But, in the kind of hype, I suppose, around data science and that it's going to, solve everyone's problems instantly, is a personal frustration of mine that a lot of data scientists kind of turn their nose up at business intelligence and reporting, but they're completely symbiotic. It's incredibly frustrating when I hear data scientists talk only about data science and not about business intelligence. The two absolutely go hand in hand, and are natural stablemates, I suppose, whenever a business is trying to improve through data. If no one has any questions, I'll crack into a couple of case studies. I'm just going to close the door, excuse me. Sorry about that, folks. I think it's COVID problems. So the first example I'm going to walk through is engagement scoring. And just to give you a bit of background, this is about an investment bank, and it's selling funds to financial advisors. And financial advisors are essentially an aggregator to the general public. They buy investments on behalf of their clients who are investors. And the investment bank wanted to improve its performance of its outbound sales team and use data to drive that change. Now, I got to be honest, they were asking for a paradigm shift here. you know, their existing method of working was very much, I've got a list of clients, and every 10 weeks I will speak to those clients, and I'll push what the business tells me to push in terms of product. Really, what they wanted to get to was, look, I know what my clients have been engaging with. I understand that there have been behaviours outside their normal interactions, so I'm going to give them a call to talk about very specific things. So, you know, there's generally two opportunities that I've got. That's sales and retention. And, you know, as with every CRM system in the world, and in this case, we were working with Salesforce, you know, we're slaves to the quality of data that is input to those systems. And all of us face challenges in terms of when people have to input into these kind of systems, the consistency and quality with which they do so. But I've always looked at this as there's kind of, you know, a lot of sales staff see CRM systems as an overhead rather than what it should be, which is a value exchange. And that value exchange needs to be, if I as a salesperson put better data into the system, I get better intelligence back that makes me more efficient, enables me to prioritize my sales opportunities, improves, and ultimately improves the commission that I get. So, you know, I just want to emphasize that value exchange is super important in these kind of engagement scoring, lead scoring, demand scoring kind of situations. And really crudely, what we're trying to do here is the equation at the bottom. I am a data scientist after all. Client behaviour is tracked to understand needs, calls are prioritised based on the value and the opportunity, and the sales team are having the right conversations. And that's really important, having the right conversation with the right people at the right time. So very quickly how it works, each proactive client engagement, and a client is synonymous with a customer in this case, every time they do something, they're given a score, but that score has a different value for different actions. So a lot of the work in engagement scoring, lead scoring, demand scoring is around understanding how much a distinct action contributes to the overall likelihood of making a sale. And the scores are attributed to that customer. Now, one thing to note very quickly, we're talking about proactive client actions. It's not, you know, we as a company sent an email, it's how the client or customer interacts with that. And all of those actions are kind of added up. And in the case of the investment bank, they were taken to an account level, an account essentially being a financial advisor company. And a bunch of business rules are overlaid because you can't just use an engagement score or a lead score, because often there are other factors at play. In this case, you know, our sales team is a limited resource. So what we don't want to do is give them low value clients who only have a couple of £1,000 of assets under management. It's not really worth their time. Those client contacts are ranked, and we apply a bunch of suppressions, but the overall outcome that we want to get to is a prioritized list of clients for the sales team to speak to, and a bunch of supporting information around when they should speak to them, what they should speak to them about, you know, perhaps surrounding information around what kind of conversations have been had in the past. So very similar to what Jordan was talking about actually, but very much that aggregated view. Now one kind of nuance of this is we in this instance care about what a company invests, but we also want to identify the individuals that are driving that value. So it's kind of an aggregation and a disaggregation, if that makes sense. And what you get is really, it's really obvious, but it's a really interesting kind of diagram, this one. What you find is, you know, the sales team is a limited resource, so the lever that it's trying to pull is value. So the sales team wants to talk to high value clients who are engaged. And so the high value, we know how much assets under management clients have. But that engagement, that's what the score does. It gives us that other, I suppose, axis. Marketing's lever is scale. So, you know, if we kind of think of it the other way, while it's expensive for a salesperson to talk to a company, because it can take months to agree to invest, marketing, it's really cheap to relatively make a webinar, send out an email, all those kind of things, because you get such scale to it. You're sending to 20, 30,000 financial advisors. And what happens is, you know, and this is a really interesting outcome, is a kind of a handoff point developed between marketing and sales, where marketing's kind of job was to get customers to a certain point and assess whether it was valuable enough to push them into the sales function. And that obviously aligns really nicely with the company objective, which is to drive engagement and value. So you know, this kind of engagement scoring, while relatively simple, it's a really, really powerful tool that gets marketing and sales working much closer together. So, you know, the outcomes for this investment bank, for the first time, their sales activity was driven by client behaviour rather than by rote. They had a lot more information at hand, and that information was curated and prioritised based on its importance. They identified a whole bunch of new contacts, because bear in mind, you know, they're working at an account and a person level. And so when we were identifying the people that were actually driving the engagement, it was a bunch of different people than they thought. So I suppose an example in the housing industry might be, you know, I thought, you know, this you know, older couple were buying a house, but actually they're curating and visiting for, you know, a children who don't live locally. It forced greater alignment between sales and marketing. I think I've touched on that. But the most compelling statistic is it drove a 550% increase in successful call rates. Now, when you kind of think about the amount of money that is changing hands in these transactions, you know, that's an enormous win for this investment bank. So, you know, a massively, massively successful project. Just going to check time, which I think I'm doing okay on. Very quickly, and I'm doing this, to be honest, because it's one of my favourite case studies, and it also demonstrates the occasional absurdity of data. I'll make a statement. You won't believe me, but I'll go through and explain it to you. I happen to know that for certain large format type DIY retailers, if you as a customer walk in there and the only thing you purchase is a packet of birdseed, I am pretty certain that you're going to buy a kitchen or a bathroom. Now, it's a big statement, but it drove an awful lot of money into this particular client. And these kind of complex relationships are things that, you know, reporting can't really pick up, certainly not at the moment. And just to kind of talk you through the project a bit more, the client wanted to understand when their customers were about to enter a project. And when I say that, you know, it's a piece of landscaping, new bathroom, new kitchen. They wanted to identify those high value projects as they're a DIY retailer. There's a really obvious, you know, indicator, a paint test pot. If someone buys a paint test pot, surely they're on a project. They're going to paint something, right? The problem with paint test pots, though, is you don't paint your wall a little bit and go, God, that green's a great colour. I'll buy a kitchen to match it. What you do is you buy the kitchen that you love, and then you choose the paint that goes with it. So you know, things like paint test pots, too late in the journey. But they had a loyalty card so they could track what people were spending. And I'll just draw back to a moment to, you've only put birdseed in your basket. So you've walked out of this DIY retailer and the only thing you've bought is a packet of birdseed. Now, we're seeing this in the data, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, because the large format DIY stores, they're generally on retail parks or out of town. Not that many people live close to them. You don't walk past them on the high street. So people are going are going to those stores for a reason, and it's tricky to assume that reason is it's tricky to assume that reason is just to buy birdseed. You don't drive a couple of miles to buy a packet of birdseed. You put it in your shop or in your online shop or your shop in the supermarket, and you get it there. So we began to suspect, looking at these baskets, that people were not really going to these out-of-town stores just to buy those products. Didn't make a lot of sense. So what we did was we actually identified about 160 trigger baskets. And I got to be honest, initially we thought it was what's called a false positive. We didn't really believe that birdseed would indicate you're going to buy a kitchen. But actually, when we went to the shops and watched people shop, what we realized they were doing was, when you buy a kitchen or a bathroom, you don't generally walk into a DIY store and go, "Oh, that's a nice kitchen, I'll have that one." Some developers may, but the general public doesn't. Obviously, what it is they've got a long consideration period. So people are in this shop. They're browsing these bathrooms, kitchens, these big ticket items, and as they're exiting the shop, they're looking at batteries, light bulbs, birdseed, and they're saying, "Oh, I need that," and that's the product that they're grabbing. And really simply, once we'd identified those 160, which grew to eventually to just over 200 baskets, all we were doing was triggering an outbound contact. So 10 or 15% off bathrooms and kitchens, and in year one delivered 20 million incremental revenue. And I think at its peak, 12-month peak, was about 36 million pounds incremental revenue, and that justified an awful lot of investments in systems, because their systems at the time were pretty poor. Which does bring us back to an earlier point that I kind of said, data science is good when you've got multiple systems and you've got a business problem, and in this case, it's the perfect scenario. They've got systems that store their product information, another one about with their transactional information, all of that kind of stuff. Their loyalty systems was through a third party. So diverse systems, complex business problem, a big opportunity. And that's kind of where data science really comes into its own, in my opinion. You don't always get 36 million pounds incremental revenue, but we've been doing this a long time, and there's certainly money to be had. And just conscious of time, and I do apologise, because I noticed just before this meeting that the wrong kind of meter has been put in, because in this slide in particular I'm talking about a water meter. But I just want us to kind of think, if someone puts a smart meter, a water meter in their home, the smart meters are amazing. They give you hourly updates if you choose, so you can accurately predict current and future water usage, their bills, all of that kind of thing. It's really good for the management of demand and supply, particularly when you take it at a macro level. But actually, there's an awful lot that you could yield from the humble smart meter. So you can tell when people are on holiday, because they use a lot less water or no water, and you can start to do things like predict how regularly they take holidays, their duration. Is there a certain time of year that that they go on holiday? And what would you do with that? You can start to get a bit more spooky, I guess. You'll start to know when people take baths, when they take the showers, and start to estimate how many people live in a property. And you can even start to, I suppose, estimate or understand whether someone's a football fan. Are you accurate enough to know they fill up the kettle at halftime during an international football match? So that's just the humble, smart meter for water. Imagine what the future home looks like. So, you do all your purchasing and all your agreements. You're signing through an app, for example. You manage access and security through another app, or even through the same app. You can control your whole house environment. by controlling that house environment, do I know who's in what room when? Book and manage repairs, and even predict when maintenance is required to prevent a future failure. And, you know, there are, I suppose, additional opportunities, particularly, I guess, if you're, you know, as you guys are home builders or housing associations, where, you know, you offer, I suppose, a consolidated utilities package. So everything is managed through the same app, and, you know, you can get your gas, your electricity, your water, your phone, your broadband, even your TV, all through that same app. And, you know, it all syncs into your smart home. But all of this is driven by data. And, you know, I kind of just talked very briefly about a water meter in the previous slide. Now, imagine if you're collecting all of this information about a person's home, you know, where everything is a digital touch point. You're integrating your you know, your Alexa and your Siris, you know, all of that kind of thing. And, you know, you can infer an awful lot about people through this kind of information. And, you know, there's both commercial and community benefits to this. You know, I've seen that Mrs. Smith hasn't filled her kettle this morning. Should I send someone around to check that she's okay, as we know that she's vulnerable? So as data grows, so does the opportunity. And back to my very first slide, this is why companies are investing so heavily in data and why they're keeping it, because they know, or suspect at least, that there are likely to be some exciting and valuable future uses. And I'm going to finish because I am conscious. I think Keisha's probably shaking her head at me. Just really quickly, and it's just something to think about, I suppose. You know, imagine I knew, you know, what your grocery shop was, what you bought from Majestic, had information from all of your wearable health tech, to the point of knowing the chemistry of your perspiration 24 times a day. You know, through the Internet of Things, I know that you've got a camera in your fridge, and I know you bought meat from the butcher and drink premium beer. You know, you shop at Amazon, but you haven't bought trainers in a long time. You've got a connected bike. And I know when you've used it and when you haven't used it. And I know a lot about kind of your local area. How good's your local hospital? What's the soil sample in your local area? Imagine if you knew all of that data, if a data scientist knew all of that data, and I think this is the bet that a lot of, you know, health companies in particular are going for. At some point, will they be able to predict, look, you know, you in 3 weeks' time, we think you're going to have a heart attack. You need to go to hospital now, an appointment's been booked, and we're going to get a stent inserted. You know, that's kind of, I think, the vision that, and I know that's just a one use case, but I think that's the vision that a lot of companies have in harvesting and keeping data. Is I think, while we don't necessarily know all those user cases yet, I think that the opportunities are enormous and frightening as well. We do need to acknowledge that all of this needs to be done responsibly and within compliance frameworks. But, you know, even the self-driving car, and a potentially significant lifesaver. So I shall finish there and say thank you very much, and give you back to Keisha and Jordan. So thank you all very much.
Great, thank you for that, Ian. That was really interesting.
Thank you, Ian.
I'm sure everyone else thought the same. Has anyone got any questions for Ian while we've got him, on anything that he's spoke about, or anything that you're just intrigued on?
I've got a question, please.
Yeah, perfect. Who is this, sorry?
It's Stuart Talbot.
Oh, perfect. I can see you now. That's fine. Yeah, perfect.
So it relates to, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going through in the infancy of quite a few projects, and one of the ones that we're looking at in terms of goals and engagement values seems to overlap it into Dynamics. So we're looking to get that implemented in Sitecore at the moment. That will then obviously collect the data to inform some decisions and marketing aspects. But it seems like Dynamics does that for us. And what I'm trying to understand is, I'm quite mindful that we don't go down a route with something like Sitecore if Dynamics could potentially do this for us. Or where, I suppose the question really is, would there be a need for both the Sitecore goals and engagement values and the Dynamics data, or would the Dynamics data do what we need to make, sort of attribution decisions and marketing email decisions?
So what I would suggest is, Stuart, is that fundamentally, do I know of sort of, let's say, home builders and housing associations where Sitecore and Dynamics exist? Yes, I do, because I think there's overlap, but they're good at different things. Sitecore being obviously really good at some of the core CMS stuff that it does, and Dynamics with some of everything sort of data and CRM. I think what I would suggest we do, which I'm happy to take offline with you, is we probably need to role play and work through that scenario in a little bit more detail and look at the journey of that to actually map out, is it, like you say, are you duplicating and adding systems for system's sake, or is it something that could be consolidated into one process? Because what we're also sort of not afraid of saying is, actually, because we know Sitecore, as some of its core principles are very different to some of the things, and some of its strengths are just in some cases non-functional in Dynamics, because of its core CMS background. We'll be very open with you and say, look, what you're trying to achieve is a hybrid here, or actually is it potentially something that you could achieve in one solution? So what I'll do is I'll take the action to drop you a line off the back of this call, if that's okay, and we can set up a session where we'll walk through and role play that requirement and workshop it through.
Yeah, that's perfect, Jordan. Thank you very much, mate.
No problem. Ian, if it's okay with you, I'll just, if anyone's got any of the Dynamics questions for me or anything I showed, feel free to ask. But I've got a quick one for you. I think what was really interesting, certainly some of the guys on the call that I speak to, and other home builder and housing clients, who are selling new homes, is once they get to a point where they've brought everything into one place, got a good handle on prospect data, which previously could live in an array of different disparate spreadsheets, email inboxes, all sorts of good things. I think one of the things that was really curious is they that there is only so many people in the UK, certainly with certainly today, that the housing market's done really well, but there is only at any one time really a number of people in the UK that are actively looking to buy a home, and whilst actually some of the work that we've been doing has been helping those home builders or housing associations get a handle on that data to make sure that they're farming it, nurturing it, and not just leaving it dead in Excel and leaving it dead in Outlook. What's really interesting though is just to get your views and opinions as to, as sort of a data scientist, if you were to predict like you did with, and I know it's obviously with the retailer you discussed, it was kind of contained within their organization, but just as I suppose just a point of interest, if you were to start to look or work with home builders to identify people who within the next 6 months might be looking to buy a home, where would you start?
Geez, it's not the easiest of questions. Well, I mean, there's the kind of Zooplas and right moves and that kind of thing that you know that, yeah, it's a great question, that kind of furnish some of that, and it's a massive problem for retailers, interestingly, and the retailer I was talking about, it's a massive part of their business, trying to identify those home movers, but they need to identify it in a dear occupier kind of perspective, and that someone's already moved and therefore we want to talk to them before they talk to go somewhere else to buy their paint and their new kitchen or whatever. Now, in terms of trying to identify the early indicators of a home mover, I think probably the most effective way to do really the data availability is the trick here. If you were to go to someone like a BT that collects every single page that you go to and visit as on your digital kind of platform, or an O2 who does the same with your mobile phone, that kind of information, what kind of things do you look for before you start to consider moving home? So are you on a lot of job sites? So you're looking for a career change or a significant new role, and will that will that indicate something? Is there an occasion that might instigate that? So do you reach a certain, is there a retirement age? Is there a kind of a significant life stage? So, if you shop at Mothercare for the first time, what does that mean for that future of home buying? And the big problem with that is, how do you access all of that data? Now, there are a couple of vendors out there that will give you some coverage on that in terms of getting access to the data. I don't necessarily think that they think like that kind of solution. And when compliance becomes part of that, you have to be quite careful that you can't target the individual. All you can do is target the behaviours. So technically feasible. I don't know of anyone doing it.
I think,
an interesting question.
Yeah, and I think just to, I suppose, wrap up on that question, I think at the moment as well, certainly with sort of the stamp duty shift, which I know certainly for new home sales, there's always been promotions that are out there that will pay your stamp duty and all that good stuff. But even now, I think there's still a case to be said that I think some of the home builders or housing associations that either on the call or outside in the UK would still be grateful for even navigating who are the real people versus who are the people that are just browsing and time wasting.
Yeah.
And where do we place our prime selling time with those people that are more warm, or actually is it that we don't need to do that and we actually need to spend more time with the majority that are kind of indecisive, that are either going to go one way or the other?
Yeah.
So but yeah,
Facebook lookalikes is a great tool for that kind of prospecting. Understanding whether you can identify through Facebook data, which you probably can because people want to talk about it, how people have talked about their new home, and kind of almost backwards engineering those groups and using Facebook advertising to identify that kind of behaviour. And I presume Google could do the same. Probably not quite as well, I don't think, but probably could.
Cool. Thank you, Ian. So just, is there any other questions, just conscious of time, is there any other questions from anyone before we wrap up? Okay, so just very quickly from us, our contact details are on screen now. So if you've got any other sort of questions that pop up around Dynamics specifically, or some of the solutions work that we're doing with home builder or housing, let me know. My details are on screen. Of course, Ian, thank you for sort of joining us this morning and for sort of giving that talk. Really, really interesting stuff. And if you've got any questions generally, guys, or some thoughts around any sort of concepts, or want to explore some more of the proof of concepts that Ian's done with various different industries around data science, then please do get in touch with him. And of course, Naomi, if there's any of you guys that are seeing trends or surges of a need for that sort of recruitment now that things are starting to, or for some of you guys, things haven't stopped being busy. But if there's any sort of questions that you've got around sort of getting yourself sort of scaled up, or resourcing any teams internally to sort of help the IT teams or new roles, then please feel free to drop Naomi a line. And as always, thank you very much for everyone who's jumped on. We've now started to create our own sort of LinkedIn page and LinkedIn group, which we'll be sharing all the information around our sort of webinars and breakfast that we're running and events. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to run some dinners again for you. Some of you that have already been, I know, enjoyed those. So we want to try and keep that going once we can, and once it's once Boris lets us. So in the meantime, I think thank you very much. We'll be running this one more than likely in the next, running another one with a new topic in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Any suggestions or any thoughts and feedback on that, on what you'd like to see? As I say, this is very much a network where we like to share and get you guys to share experiences across sector, and talk about the different discussion topics, business pain points, technologies, and really collaborate.